Hey, it's me, Marky Joe, here to entertain you. Yes, it is my show. It exists. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it.
Yeah. Okay, this chapter's gonna be awkward to commentate over because I have a lot of shit to say because I'm gonna be talking about level design again. But I only have 8 minutes to do it because the chapter's so short and I beat it super quick. Click! Battle of the Past. That's a fucking awesome name for a chapter. That just sounds like it's some serious business, you know? So we cross the river, head down the peak, and basically what's going on here is that Marth doesn't want to fight the Aconians, so he decides to go through the mountains to approach Aconio from. Unfortunately, the Orleans soldiers, the Wolf Guard, are gonna be blocking his way because this is where Orleans is. And Marth's like, oh shit, what the fuck do I do? This is a really easy chapter, but I like it in concept simply because, like, once you see the map, it's gonna be pretty obvious why it's interesting. Like, you have this weird enemy setup. You have all these paladins and archer dudes. You have your dudes, like, in this bottom middle area, just above the mountains, and to the right is your goal. And to the left is a single village, which you need to visit if you want to prevent the paladins and archers from fucking you over. Because the King of Orleans is there. The king being the brother of Hardin. So Linda's got the light orb and the star orb. She's also going to use Rosire. She's basically just going to break right with Ubello and beat the shit out of all the generals and shit to pave a way for Marth to go in. So this here is Rosh, and he's like, dudes, what if the government is trying to fuck us over? Like, holy shit, man. What if Hardin is secretly a bad guy? And these guys are like, take off the tinfoil hat, Rosh. Marth's evil. You can't fucking see that? Hardin said so. And Rosh is like, oh, I don't know, guys. We fought with Marth we fought alongside Marth in the previous war, and he seemed like a pretty stand-up guy, and they're like, no! That's not canon! We've retconned it! And Rosh is like, oh, okay. He just fights alongside us. But yeah, my strategy, just take Marth to the left, visit the village, and then take him to the right, seize the throne. It's very simple. Once you visit the village, the paladins and shit do not attack you, they just run off. So, anyway, chapter solved. Anyway, let's get to the heart of this discussion. So today, with Fire Emblem level design, I'm going to talk about player proactivity. So, in a lot of Fire Emblem hacks, it's very easy to camp. Like, a lot of Fire Emblem hacks do not give you much of a reason not to camp. And, oh, here's the King of Orleans, he's the brother of Hardin, and he's like, you know, I'm gonna tell my dudes to stop fighting you, and I know you're gonna have to fight Hardin, but it's okay. You know, he was a knight, he's gonna die a knight's death, that's considered honorable. Anyway, back to the discussion. So, yeah, Fire Emblem hacks, people camp. The reason why is because camping is easy and effective to do. Player can easily, like, set up a defensive position, and the enemy typically lacks the tools or the intelligence to break through it or get around it. This allows you to remove aggressive enemies from the map, and then afterwards you can take your time baiting out the remaining passive ones that, you know, just hang around until you get in their range. And then you can sort of dogpile them. The other thing that makes people want to camp is that it makes resource management easier. Your squishy ranged units and so on and so forth can get easy EXP because the enemies are they're approaching you, they're getting weakened by your bulky dudes, and, you know, that opens up opportunities for your weaker units to get some EXP. It also allows you to save up your best weapons because you're never being pressed to use them. So, like in FE6, if we had a situation like this, you would never use a Durandal, for example, because you're not being pressured into, like, using it as a panic button. So obviously the solution is to remove these benefits, right? Well, yes, but there's other ways you can do it. But first, let's talk about how we can remove these benefits. So firstly, you can make the enemies hit hard and accurately. A problem with a lot of Fire Emblem hacks is that they use FE7 as a base, and the enemies are kind of tame in FE7. But if you increase their strength, their skill, and their luck by just a little bit, you'll see that it makes a huge difference in how you face the enemies. I'd say buff it by 3 points of strength, 2 points of skill, and maybe 1 luck. You'll have to fiddle with the numbers to figure out, but you'll find that the results are very satisfying, and it makes the enemies all that much more scary to fight. And additionally, it becomes more difficult to camp against them, because, like, if you camp in one spot and your enemies are initially spread out, they're gonna combine and they're gonna approach you, and then they're gonna combine. And because they have that increased firepower, they're gonna just plow right through you. So it's actually safer to spread out your units so that the enemies don't combine. Divide and conquer. Another way you could do this is to prevent camping, is you can make the enemies, you don't need to make them strong, but if they die in one round of combat to your defensive units, then basically what's going to happen is that on enemy phase, they're going to approach your knight dude or whatever, do some damage to him, die, and then another dude's going to fill in his place, attack the knight dude, die, and it's going to keep going until finally the knight dies. And you won't have an opportunity to heal him because it's enemy phase still, it's not your turn. This one's kind of obvious, but remove obvious choke points. That's another way to lower camping. I mean, you could do it. There's plenty of counters against the player using choke points, but it's also a safe bet that if the player doesn't have choke points, they can't camp. Effectiveness weapons are another way you can prevent camping, because you don't need to make the enemy strong or hit hard, but if your defensive units are weak to certain weapons, then you can just give those to the enemies so that you can't so easily defend. Another way to lower camping, set a time limit to get from point A to point B. So in most cases, you're going to want to seize a throne or kill a boss, but if you set a time limit until you get an automatic game over, the player, you can bet, is going to jump out of their fucking safe zone and bolt straight for that. Now, I don't consider this organic game design, however, because you're forcing the player to do something rather than making them want to. So, one more suggestion I can give to discourage camping is to not make the enemy approach. If the enemy does not approach, the player has to, because the player wants to win the game. The enemy doesn't give a shit because it's just AI, it can't think. So eventually the player's gonna have to go in. You can make... the problem is that this makes the chapter into a bait and switch fest because the enemies aren't moving and you're not being pressured, so you just bait them. However, you can make bait and switching interesting as well. As an example, look at f.exe from Ragefest 3. Another thing you could do is look at the first chapter of Fire Emblem 11. The enemies are actually designed such that they won't aggro or charge after you until you reach certain points on the map. So this allows the player to set the pace while at the same time, once they're ready, they'll start to get pressured by the enemy. And yes, I know the chapter's done. I'm not even looking at the screen, to be honest. But yeah, I'm going to continue reading this until I'm done. So those are all the ways that you can discourage the player from camping. But let's say you don't want to be as rigid. Let's say instead of punishing the player for doing something you don't want, you reward them for doing something you do want them to do, which in my opinion is the better way to design a chapter. I don't like it when chapters, remove options from the player. I like it when they make certain options more rewarding, so that the player will naturally think to themselves, okay, I'll adapt and do this because I want this. And luckily, Fire Emblem already has this kind of system implemented into the original games. In pretty much every Fire Emblem game, there are villages to visit that threaten being destroyed by bandits, chests to open that threaten to be plundered by thieves, and characters that you have to, meet up with before they get done in by the enemy. And then you recruit them, and then you're like, yay! So the game rewards you for charging forward and taking risks. And honestly, this is where I tell Fire Emblem hackers that they should take a page from the original games and look at what they did. there's other ways you can reward the player for, moving forward, but honestly, do I really need to go into detail? Just give them shit. It's the most obvious and the most effective solution, to be honest. Anyway, I think that's it for the level design talk for today. And feel free to check the Reddit article I made on it and comment on it. Bye! I need someone to review my FE hack. He needs to be someone who won't cut me slack. It's Monkey Joe, he's arrived from his golden chariot, and down he